What is up, Serie A fans and Stoppage Time fans? This is a very special episode of Stoppage Time. We are going to be doing a deep dive into Fiorentina with our friend Tito from Viola Nation. And before I introduce him, a little bit of maintenance out of the way, the business end. We are brought to you by All Juve Cast and by Striped Hearts Apparel, some of the most comfortable, clothing that you can have, Juventus-based, because that's obviously what our team does. So without further ado, Tito from Viola Nation, thank you so much for hopping on, man. I'm really happy to have you on. And tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to it, especially kind of stepping across the aisle here into the Juve camp. It's always a little bit scary. So hope y'all bear with me. I'm Tito. I'm the site boss over at violanation.com. Been doing that since like 2015, 2016-ish. I probably have to check my resume, honestly. And we're probably one of the bigger English language Fiorentina websites on the internet, which is the definition of medium-sized fish in fairly small pond. But it's a great site. We've got a long-term loyal group of readers, very active in the comments, really strong community. Everyone welcome to stop by, as long as again, don't be too pro Juve, maybe, or you'll probably draw some ire, right? But,
yeah, absolutely. And you guys have to check out their page. They have some really amazing content. And I will not be talking about Juventus for the majority of this podcast. We will be talking all Fiorentina all the time. We will not be talking about Juve. So trust me, you're safe, and I will not attack you with any Juve propaganda. Without further ado, I really wanted to get into kind of the first thing that I want to talk about was this Fiorentina-Verona matchup that just passed from this past weekend, ended in a 1-1 draw. Give me some of your takeaways from that. You had Piontek scoring early. He's been really hot for the team. And then you had Verona getting a penalty kick and Caprari, drawing the match up. And then it ended in a 1-1 draw. So what were some of your takeaways from that match?
Since we just agreed not to talk about Juve, right? Let's start out talking about Juve here. I think there was a pretty obvious emotional hangover for Fiorentina following that midweek Copa tie.
Mm-hmm.
That was just such an intensely emotional thing, I think, for the fans, for the players, for everyone. If you watched the game, you saw what the Franchi looked like, and it was nothing I've ever seen. So I think the team definitely came out a little bit flat. Again, as you would sort of expect, I think, following that and how that went. They got the lead first. I think it was honestly pretty against the run of play. It was their first foray forward. Huge credit to Igor Tudor and what he's doing over in Verona. He had his team pressing extremely well, made it really hard for Fiorentina to play it short, play out back, which is, you're probably aware, sort of their calling card this year.
Yeah. It's funny enough you mentioned that, because I just did a interview with a Verona fan, a quote-unquote Verona expert, because there's a lot of fans who know a lot about the game. Our guest Rick knew a lot about the game. He's a fan, but he is basically an expert because he lives in Verona. And he was.
Is that Rick? Rick Notes from Verona?
Yes, we had a Rick. Yeah,
awesome.
He's wonderful, just an absolutely class person, and it was great to have him on. And we were talking about the rivalry between Verona and Fiorentina, but it's not really a rivalry; it's more of a love fest.
So the Gemellaggio, yeah.
Yes, exactly. He was saying that when you go to the stadium, a lot of the times in those matchups, they'll actually, if Verona's in relegation battle, they'll root for Verona, and likewise, if Fiorentina's struggling, Verona will. Those fans will cheer for Fiorentina, which I think is absolutely amazing. I never knew that. So, tell me a little bit about your experience, obviously being U.S. based. Have you seen a lot of that between the fan bases?
Well, if I'm being honest, I have not met a whole lot of Verona fans in the U.S. I'm based on the West Coast now. I'm originally from Texas, and where I'm from, I think I was probably the only Serie A fan in my area code. So there weren't a whole lot of opportunities for that sort of cross-pollination, sadly. Yeah. But I think it's a really lovely thing. I think it goes back to I'm sure Rick knows way more about this than I do. He's a much more astute scholar of the game.
He's also a history buff. He loves history about the city, so he knows a lot. But continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say that I think Verona is they're a very interesting story in that like kind of love relationship. I told Rick, I said, it's got to be tested somewhat in this match, right? Because they're kind of both in a really good place right now in the table. So what was some of your, what were some of your insights when we were watching this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, going back to that atmosphere, because it is when these two teams play, generally, you think of the ultras like yelling at each other. There's this potential for violence. It's just a big party normally when it's Fiorentina and Verona. The both sets of fans will like cook together, sing together, eat together before and after the game. It's really beautiful.
Yeah,
So
it's very opposite to any Juve game that I've ever seen.
very much, yeah. So I really do like that, and I think that party atmosphere might have also contributed to Fiorentina coming out a little bit flat. So that, I mean, that might have something to do with it. But yeah, no, I think Verona was really good, pressing especially. They play that same sort of tridente that Atalanta does with the one striker
Yep.
and then one or two attackers sort of floating behind. And Italiano did a really interesting thing in the what was that? Their second game against Atalanta in 2 weeks, the Serie A game they won 1-0, where he almost shifted to a back three in a lot of ways. Cristiano Biraghi sat much deeper. Normally, he's very focused on getting forward, overlapping. I think he might lead the league in attempted crosses right now. So his job is very much to go forward. And in that one, he sat deep, formed more of a back three, and it worked fantastically. It let the defense spread out wider, provided more cover against the counter, and let them work the ball forward and across a lot more easily. I kind of thought we were going to see something similar in this one, and we didn't. Biraghi was very forward thinking. I think he played more crosses than anyone else on the field, as is usually the case with him.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you mentioned a few things. Obviously, a few results you talked about Atalanta. So let me give you a little bit of snapshot for the people who don't know the results this season for Fiorentina. They've beaten Torino. They beat Atalanta 3 times. All 3 times they played, they've beaten them. And then 2 of those being in Serie A, 1 in Coppa Italia. And then they've also beat Milan. They beat Napoli in the Coppa Italia 5-2. So that was a huge scoreline. And they've only lost to the Juve in the semifinal of the Coppa Italia, which you spoke about, off an extremely unlucky own goal, and they were dominating most of the match. I'm a Juve fan, and I'm completely honest. I would be lying to myself if I said that they weren't playing awful Juve, and Fiorentina were playing so well. They were on the front foot the entire time, and I think it was Venuti or Venuto. It was a Venuti.
Lorenzo Venuti, yeah.
Venuti. I was actually like heartbroken to see the look on his face because that was really unfortunate for that to go off him.
It was, and especially Venuti too. He's from Tuscany. He's been in the Fiorentina system since he was 11 years old, I think. He grew up going to Fiorentina games.
Wow.
He's always been a fan. He's gone to the Curva to watch games, like the Curva Fiesole, where all the ultras hang out. I mean, a lot of his family lives in Florence, so that was in front of his friends and family, and probably the biggest game of his career. And I mean, just the heartbreak.
Yeah, because he was playing a good match too. He was doing very well.
He was fine. Yeah, he was fine. I mean, especially having to come on after Odriozola got injured right before the break, I thought Venuti adapted really well. I mean, my heart just goes out to him. That's such a tough thing. And it carried over too. He did not look good against Verona. I didn't think I think the Mastini clearly targeted him with Caprari and with Darko Lazovic. Trying to combine down his flank, and they gave him a real rough time in that first 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was a really tough game for Fiorentina to kind of break through that 1-1 stalemate. But you mentioned Tudor. We spoke about that in the Verona interview that, Verona they're playing up to opponents. They really are. They're playing up to some of the top teams. I said in that interview that there was they beat a bunch of the top teams and drew a bunch of the top teams this season. So they were also in good form. So, I mean, this is one of those grinding matches. When I had my guest, obviously I was trying to be nice, and I said Verona was going to win in a shootout 3-2. But he guessed, to Rick's credit, he called it a draw, and he called it correctly. Not 1-1, he called 2-2. But, he called it right on the money. It was just nobody could really break through that stalemate, even though Biraghi, who you mentioned, had a few opportunities on goal with some free kicks. And we know that he's a really dangerous free kick taker, as you know.
Yeah, the Biro a Giro. I think he's leading Serie A in free kick goals this year with 3. including that double against who was it, Genoa, where they beat him 6-0, which is still one of the more surreal games I've seen this year.
Yeah, he's just so dangerous on free kicks. And how old is he now? He's getting up there?
29 or 30, I think. So
okay. So he's one of those really good veteran presence to have on Fiorentina, don't you think? You have a nice combination of youth. Obviously, we'll get into the whole thing with Vlahovic leaving later.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be a doozy. That's going to be a heart wrencher.
Oh yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
But in terms of Fiorentina's team, I feel like they have a really good combination of youth and veterans. Like they have Biraghi, who's a great experienced player, especially on set pieces and crosses, as well as like Callejon. And in the middle you have Bonaventura. So how do you like that mix of that squad right now that they have?
I think it's a really good squad, honestly. I mean, credit to Daniele Prade. I think there have definitely been some missteps. I think in the past couple of years, I would argue that Jose Callejon. I mean, on the one hand, I love having him at Fiorentina because it means there is someone on the squad who's older than I am, which feels great, right?
Yeah.
But he's the only one, so once he goes, it's all over for me. But he's the highest earner at the club, and he's not terrible, but he just isn't.
He's not what he used to be.
Yeah, he can barely run anymore. If you get him the ball in space, he can dig out a decent cross, but that's pretty much all he offers. He's about as mobile as a hippopotamus with 3 legs at this point. So yeah, I think that, and I think that's pretty clear that the club understands that too. I mean, the move for Jonathan Icone that they made in January, that's their 5th winger that they've brought in. So they've got 5 wingers for 2 spots, and that to me is a pretty damning indictment of how Callejon has played over his year and a half now in Florence.
Yeah, but let's talk about those wingers. Actually, you have a wealth of talented wingers, in my opinion. You have, and probably in your opinion as well, you have Nico Gonzalez, who I thought was one of the steals of the transfer window.
Yes.
You have Icone, who's he's had really good seasons in France. He's kind of an undervalued player. You kind of got him when he was kind of on the downside.
Yeah.
So you got a good deal on him, and then you have Sotil, who's been developing really, really well. And obviously you have the older player in Callejon, but he's a good veteran presence. I don't know if I'm missing anybody else.
Ricardo Saponara is the other one.
Saponara, he's also
another veteran who I don't know how he's still in Florence. They've been loaning him out, I think 3 loans in a row. And then he was at Spezia last year with Italiano, and I think Italiano requested to keep him because he understood the system so well. And he's actually been quite good this year. I mean, he's just such a silky smooth player.
He really is.
As long as he doesn't have to move, he's one of the most entertaining players you're going to see in the league. He's just
100%. He's really creative, and like for the price tag that you pay for him right now, he's kind of a steal. The numbers don't show it, but if you watch him play, like he's a very, very solid player. So that's a great piece to have rotating.
Yeah. I mean, I think the general consensus is that he probably shouldn't be playing against, the top 6 teams.
Yeah.
That lack of athleticism, God love him, really starts to show. But against teams that don't have quite that top level of talent, he's definitely got just such outrageous technique that he can produce some genius. But I think you're right with Nico Gonzalez is just outrageous.
Yeah.
Jonathan Icone definitely stagnated at Lille the past couple of years. Sorry, I don't speak any French, so that's going to be very badly pronounced.
That's okay. It sounded good. I speak limited French as well.
Oh, you're way ahead of me then.
Je parle un peu français.
Hey. My nom?
I speak a little French.
I got nothing. Sorry, man.
No, it's all good.
I think Icone, definitely. I think that he really needed a change of scenery is what I've heard from most of the people I know who watch a lot of Ligue 1. And over the past, week and a half, he's played 3 games and has looked superb in 2 of them. If he ever learns how to finish, he's going to be one of the better wingers in the league. I think he's
because if you watch him play, he's very quick with his feet. I watched him dribble the other day. He was on a 1-on-1 and he literally just stood there and just did a bunch of moves like stagnant in the same spot and did a bunch of moves. Didn't end up going anywhere on that, but I was like, that was extremely impressive to pull that out of his hat and just doing all these moves. And then he could at like 1 split second just sprint by you. He's really pacey, really quick with his feet, really great dribbler. And then he is I think he's a lefty, I believe.
Oh yeah,
And he has a good right foot as well. But like you said, if he can finish, he's a really, really good player. And I think Italiano is really going to bring the best out of him, whether you guys end up keeping him long term or maybe you sell him for a profit. I think there's a really good upside with him on the team.
for sure. Yeah, I think 15 million euros in January, which is I think a real steal.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had chances to win that game against Sassuolo. I think he had 3 or 4 shots
Yeah.
that he just couldn't quite beat Andrea Consigli with. Against Juventus, he missed 2 chances, including one on a breakaway that he doinked off the upright when he was completely one-on-one with Perin, which
I couldn't believe you missed it.
I mean, I kind of could. That has a little bit been the rap on him that he's never been a good finisher. And if you look at his stats in Liga and through his career, I don't think he's ever scored more than 5 goals or so.
Yeah, he's not really a scorer. He's more of a creator and kind of assisting type player.
But he has shown a lot of really. He's very creative in the wide areas as well. He's not just quick and dribbly. He's not just Gervinho, basically.
Yeah,
I think that he's got great vision. He plays with his head picked up instead of just putting it down and driving. And he's a really, really clever passer. I think that, yeah, if Italiano can bring out his best, I think he's got a chance to combine with Sotil and Nico Gonzalez to create maybe the most exciting attack in Serie A.
That's what I've been saying even before Vlahovic left. Well, even with that, I thought they had one of the probably the top 4 forward combinations of any Serie A team. Even without Vlahovic, I still think they have one of the most exciting front attacking like trios or 4 or 5 players you could think of. And then if Icone breaks out for 5 goals and 10 assists, that's a great season.
Yeah, that sure would be. I don't think you'd find a whole lot of people in Florence complaining about that.
100%. But the next thing I really want to get into, we talked a little bit about these results. You guys are sitting at 8th on the table, behind Lazio, 3 points behind them. How did you feel this season was going to go, looking back at the beginning, as well as did you expect yourself to be here, as well as do you think you guys can make the top 6? Because before you answer that, I had them being top 6 prior to the season. I was really, really high on this team. I can pull the receipts. I have them. I had the table. I had it set up where I think I had them 6th because I just believe in Italiano. I didn't think they would get rid of Vlahovic halfway through the season. So that kind of threw a wrench in it. But I still, even halfway through the season, I said, you know what? They start off on such a high note. I think they'll continue it with some good signings they made in Piontek and Cabral to kind of make up for losing Vlahovic. Obviously, you can never really make up for him. But you can try to salvage some of those goals that you would miss without him. But yeah, what do you think of this team, and what did you think prior to the season?
I was definitely not as high on him as you were preseason. I could say that. Which, yeah, man, I think my thought and kind of what most people around the team thought was somewhere in the top half was a reasonable goal. I think there was always a little bit of doubt about Vlahovic, and yeah, the way that played out, obviously, not great if you're a Viola fan. A little bit better if you're a Juve fan, I imagine.
Yeah, but you know what though? In your defense, you guys did get a lot of money from him. So do you think that's a positive? At least you guys cashed in. You got as much money as you could.
No, this is very true. So I mean, I think it could have been a lot worse. We could have been looking at a Chiesa situation where Juve's paying 20 euros for the next 40 decades. So I'm fine with it.
Yep.
I mean, I'm obviously still pretty irritated to have lost such a big piece, but
of course,
when you step back a little bit, if that's what it's going to be, this is probably making the best of a fairly bad situation. So I'm okay with it. I think start of the year I figured top half, maybe push for the Conference League, and Vlahovic obviously came out like gangbusters, scored a lot of goals, and I think what we're seeing now is he papered over a lot of cracks in that team, especially going forward. And Piontek been scoring a lot of goals, but just doesn't do the same things, doesn't contribute nearly as much to build up in possession. Honestly, he's just not as much of a threat. Defenses don't have to account for him as much. And so when Vlahovic was there, I mean, you were seeing 2 or 3 players at all times marking him, I think, which gave everyone else so much more space. Piontek does not draw that sort of attention, and I think it allows opposing defenses to really focus on the other threats across the field, which makes it a whole lot harder for Fiorentina to do anything, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that. Sorry to cut you off, but
no,
I was gonna say, based on that, we were talking about Vlahovic, we were talking about scores. So I was looking at the numbers, and obviously we know how we'll get into a little bit more of this, Vlahovic loss. I kind of want to get your full opinion of this. We've kind of already gotten most of it, but him leaving left a big hole because the next top scorer on this team, I believe, I'm not sure if it took into account this weekend's action, but it's Biraghi with 4 goals. That's the next highest goal scorer on this team.
Yeah.
So who do you think ends up stepping up and being that goal scorer? Is it going to be Cabral? Is it going to be Piontek? Is it going to be one of the wingers? Where do you see those goals? Is it going to be a little bit of everybody contributing? What do you think?
Right now it's Piontek. I think he actually is the leader in the clubhouse now across all competitions. He's got 6 since he joined in January, which is a really
9 matches.
Which is a really impressive record, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 6 goals in 9 matches is very good.
Great. That's between Copa and Serie A, so that's phenomenal.
So he's doing great. Again, I don't think that he contributes very much in build-up play. His hold-up play isn't very good. He's not particularly quick. I don't think he offers very much until the ball actually gets into the area. When he's he's a pretty good poacher. So I think that he's going to be relied on for the goals. I think he's got a pretty good chance to hit double figures in the league, which would be a fantastic success, right? In half a season, getting 10 goals is a really, really good return. That means you're on track for around 20 goals over a whole season, which is a great rate. Cabral, I think, he scored his first goal against Sassuolo.
It was a very clutch goal too.
Yeah, it sure would have been if Fiorentina hadn't done a Fiorentina and conceded right at the death, which they're doing with alarming regularity. I think the understanding is that he's a little bit more of a project. He's young and he's been in the Swiss league, which, with respect, the Swiss league is very high standard of play. Look at how they do in Europe every year. But I think it's probably not quite where Serie A is. And I think he's taking a little bit of time to settle in, adjust, especially, a young guy in a new country. You want to make sure he's got plenty of time to bed in and kind of get his feet under him. So I'm actually very pleased they're not trying to rush him. Push him into things here.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think we're going to see him as much this year. I think he's definitely more of a long-term option. Italiano, talking about where the goals are supposed to come from, after the Juve game, in his post-match presser, Italiano talked about how he needed his wingers to score more goals.
Yeah.
Which, we've sort of touched on here, but it's not just the fans saying that, it's the coach too, right? And I think between the 5 wingers that they have right now, Icone, Nico Gonzalez, Sotil, Saponara, and Callejon, I think they've got 7 or 8 goals between them, which is just enough. Frankly, Nico Gonzalez has had a bunch of chances that he hadn't rounded off. Callejon is old. Saponara is going to score bangers. You take a look at a couple of the goals he scored. They're just really nice to watch. But he only does that once every 12 games or so. And Sotil has got all the talent in the world, but hasn't quite put it together yet. I think still waiting for him to really get that.
Yeah,
I think until the wingers really start scoring, this team's ceiling is a little bit capped. And I don't know if the solution there is grabbing another striker in the summer. I don't know if it's sticking with Piontek, who, again, fantastic so far, but I don't think that his overall game really contributes very much. And for $15 million to Hertha, that seems a little bit steep to me, if I'm honest.
Okay.
But again, I'm not the one spending Rocco Camiso's money. That's not my job, right? I'm there's a reason that I'm sitting in an apartment in Seattle and not working working in the director's box in Florence, right? So I have no clue what I'm talking about, right? So,
No, it's funny because I always tell people, I'm just a guy. I just talk about culture. I don't. What do I know?
No, you get it.
I like to think I know a little bit, but I don't know as much as some of these guys who are in the locker room, who see these players on a daily basis. They do scouting reports, so they know a lot more than I do. They have all the information at their disposal. But we do our best with what we watch and what we see and what we hear in the news. So
Yeah,
I think we do a pretty darn good job. But I was gonna say, yeah, exactly, the nice golfing clap. But I was gonna say for the goals, I think for Piontek, it's not gonna be as heavily on him because you have such creative wingers that you let them create the opportunities, and then he'll just be waiting in the box to leap on them, and then they'll cross it in or they'll pass it in, and he'll finish it if he's in the box. So I think even without Vlahovic, you guys have a good setup. You have a really raw talent in Sotil, and you have a somewhat polished talent in Nico Gonzalez, who if he can get to finish a little bit more, he could be like Ikone. He could be one of those guys who offers double-digit assists and maybe is like 5 or 6 goals per season, which would be great. If you're getting that on both wings from Ikone and him, I think you guys would be set up for great success long term. But now for the question that I've been wanting to ask a Fiorentina fan for a very long time. Well, not even a question, but did you expect Vincenzo Italiano to be one of the best young coaches in the world, let alone one of the best coaches in Serie A right now?
Oh boy, yeah.
I love him. I love him. I love the man.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly. He's been fantastic, hasn't he? I think what's impressed me more with him is not as much as a tactician. I mean, I talked a little about some of the tactical tweaks he's made, planning out for specific opponents.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what he's done more than anything is like the effect he's had on the squad's psychology has just been unbelievable to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, after 2 years of Giuseppe Iachini, who, again, respect, he's very good at what he does, right? Like,
yeah.
If you don't want to get relegated or you want to get promoted, call Giuseppe Iachini for sure, and he's probably going to do the thing.
Yeah.
It's really not where Fiorentina should be, I don't think. If you look at how much money the team spends on payroll, if you look at historically this team's profile, that should not be a promotion relegation kind of team.
Yeah.
So I think that going from the extreme negativity of Beppe ball, where you're just, you're constantly passive, you attack with maybe 1 or 2 players, everyone else defends, it's extremely rigid, extremely disciplined, there's really no interest in keeping the ball, working the ball around, doing anything that could be even remotely described as aesthetically pleasing. And I think taking this squad, which was so fragile, after 2 years of that and just getting battered and going through a couple of relegation fights and always disappointing everyone's expectations, both the fans and the national medias, I think going from that and taking this team from there to a team that wants to play against anyone. I mean, even from the first day when they lost to Roma and went down to 10 in the first half, and they still wanted to keep the ball pinging around. They still wanted to attack. And I think that shows the kind of connection that he has built with these players in a really short time, especially since he didn't have a very long summer with all the absurdity where they appointed Rino Gattuso for 22 days and then he back down. And, oh my God,
it turned out to be one of the best decisions that ever happened to Fiorentina.
Yeah, thank you, Jorge Mendes. I mean, we cannot thank you enough for torpedoing that. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think Italiano, his man management side is just incredible. Like he's clearly got a gift for working with these players and for bringing the best out in a lot of them. I mean, Ricardo Nara has been, he was a very highly touted prospect about 10 years ago at Milan and then at Empoli, and then had a bunch of injuries and just kind of became an afterthought. And now he's a regular. Look at the way that Igor has come on.
Yeah, he's a super physical defender, and he's really become like almost like a Walmart Bremer. I like to call him because he's like a very because he's not the same price tag, he's not the same quality, but he has a lot of the same characteristics. He's not a shutdown kind of center back, but he's got a lot of those qualities. If you need a Walmart version for $15 on sale, you can go get him.
No, that's very true. I think also the fact that Igor, before this year, we weren't sure if he was a center back or a left back or a left wing back. I mean, he'd never played as a full-time center back in a back 2 in his career. He'd been playing at Spal on the left of a back 3 and on that left wing back. under Giuseppe Iachini, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So dropping him into the middle of the defense and saying, all right, this is your job now. You've never done this before, and now you're going to do it against, say, Dusan Vlahovic. That's pretty impressive. He did a heck of a job. So
Yeah.
I think that just seeing the way that he's been able to develop players like that, Ricardo Sotil, same thing, is really taking steps. Still very frustrating at times, for sure, but really improving. And I think that shows you, I think more than anything, what Italiano does. He develops players. He makes these players feel confident in themselves. They all trust the system, no matter what. They want to play his style of ball, no matter the situation. Again, tactically, I think he's got a few things left to learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes his substitution patterns are a little bit wonky. Against Verona, he pulled Piontek and brought in Nico Gonzalez to play at striker, which really
he can do that, but he's not the finisher that Piontek has been.
Yeah, and he's not really. I don't think he can lead the line by himself. He's got a heck of a jump on him. He can leap like a salmon, so he's decent in the air. But he doesn't have that same understanding of how to work in space like a real traditional number 9. He tends to drift off. He wants to find space. He wants to receive the ball and then turn and run, rather than making those runs in behind off the ball, I think. And so I think that bringing in Nico Gonzalez for those last, 20 minutes instead of Arthur Cabral was probably a mistake. But, I mean, that's the thing with Italiano, right? He's, 42, 43?
Yeah.
This is his second year as a manager in Serie A.
Yeah. It's incredible.
He's only going to get better. He's going to learn from every mistake that he makes, and he's going to improve from it. And so I think, especially with a team like Fiorentina that is in about the same boat, basically trying to develop itself, that's exactly what you want in a manager. You want someone who is smart, talented, has the trust of the players, and when a mistake happens, is going to take something useful from it. And that's what we've seen.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, I love him. I love everything he does. I want him as Juve's manager.
Hang on.
I made a prediction within the next 3 to 5 years, he will take the step to Juventus as their manager. I know it's probably a bold take, but I just think that he would do so much with that team. He could do so much.
You're saying you don't want more Max Allegri 19?
No, I don't want more terrorism ball. I don't
grind
want
out 1-0s.
No, I don't want more terror ball. I don't want that. I don't want to be sweating.
Are you sure? I don't know. I feel like that's great for. I really like that for you.
It's good for the league, man. It's good for the league. No, for me, I just love him as a manager. Besides Juventus, Fiorentina might be the second team I watch the most on weekends. I just love watching Fiorentina. I love how they play. I love watching. It's exciting to watch. Because I watch boring football with Juventus constantly. I'm like, I need something to make me happy because this depresses me. So I watch Fiorentina. I'm like, it's so beautiful. So it really is great to watch.
No, and I really think that's what Fiorentina's, like, the platonic ideal of Fiorentina is, right? Is the club that everyone wants to watch, even if they don't support them. I mean, if you look at this team over the past, 30 years, they almost always have a genuine world-class striker.
Yeah.
I mean, you go Roberto Baggio to Gabriel Batistuta. I mean, you go a couple of years in the lower leagues then, so maybe not quite as much. As much as I love Enrico Chiesa and Enrico Fantini. But and then you go to Luca Toni, you go to Adrian Mutu, who I think people forget, after the cocaine and the sex workers and everything else, that he was just an unbelievable talent. You go to Stevan Jovetic back before the injuries, just sacked everything he had. You go to Giuseppe Rossi, same thing. You go to from there, I'm probably even missing a couple here. Dusan Vlahovic is the latest, and I think that Fiorentina is one of those teams that you associate with, like, stylish, iconic attackers who everyone wants to watch.
Even the kits have always historically been beautiful. Like, I've always loved looking at the old Fiorentina kits. They're amazing.
I mean, that's part of what drew me to the club to start with when I first became a fan.
That's awesome. Mean, was it the Sony kits?
Oh man, that was would have been, let's see now, would have been like what, 2005
or 6?
Probably like 2002, I think, was when we got cable. and I first got to watch him and just saw the highlights. I was like, who are these guys wearing purple? This is really cool. No one else
That's
wears
awesome.
purple. Yeah. So no, it's that same thing. Like, and I think that's what they're supposed to be. I think Sassuolo is that a little bit right now because I mean everyone loves Scamacca and Raspadori and watching Traore and Berardi, of course, operating that attack. Like that's fun. That's great. Who doesn't enjoy that? And I think that's what Fiorentina should be as well, although on a slightly larger scale, just because financially, it's a bigger team.
Yeah, 100%. The next topic I really wanted to get into were we kind of already talked about them, some of the hidden gems of this squad. So we talked about Piontek, who's been on a hot streak. You have Sotil, who's been an impact starter at times and then a super sub sometimes for Italiano. He has 3 goals, 2 assists. Talked about Gonzalez, who's been a really impact player on this team on the wing. 2 goals and 4 assists in league play. Then the one part of this team that I think everybody overlooks, the most overlooked part of this team, that might be one of the most underrated midfields in the league, in my opinion, with Lucas Torreira, Alfred Duncan, who played really well in the last game. You got Nara, who's like a hybrid midfielder / winger. You have Bonaventura, Amrabat, Castrovilli, who still is he still hasn't taken that next step, but that's a really, really talented group of players.
It is. I think that's really been the sort of the cipher so far, is figuring out which combination of them works best in that middle. I think that Lucas Torreira has been everything we could have asked for, and he's just
steal.
For steal. And like he's just fun. He looks like the kind of guy who is extremely not fun to play against. Like he's just
annoying because it's bother you in the midfield.
Yeah, like the ahead of Caprari's penalty, for example, against Hellas on Sunday. Like right as Caprari was about to run up and take it, Torreira walked out and like waved everyone off and like walked over and like pointed at the ball. Was like, no, it's too close, and like made him reset and like take. It was hilarious. He's just such a jerk, and you gotta have players like that on your team, right? Like, you gotta have someone who is. And I'm sorry if I'm for the profanity. You gotta have someone who's a little bit of a bastard, and Torreira is absolutely a little bit of a bastard. And he's hilarious. Like, it's
We were just talking about that actually on one of our recent All Juve shows. All Juve cast was that you have to have some, excuse my language, assholes on the team.
Yeah.
You gotta have some of those types of players on the team who can just get in people's heads, really bother them, get under their skin, because that's when the red cards, the yellow cards start coming out and you start costing the other team by getting their heads and playing these mind games. So that's what you need on the team. And he's 5'6".
He's
tiny. He's like me. He's 5'6". He's just annoying the crap out of you.
Yeah, he's just this spiky little ball of energy. I love the guy. Yeah. So no, he's been, I think, the best midfielder by far this year.
Yep.
But I think the rest of it has been a little bit shaky. Sofian Amrabat actually been a little bit better recently. He started the year looking not good at all to me. Just over dribbling, overthinking, too many touches, but he's been a little bit better. Still has a mistake in him, I think. But definitely improving. I mean, look at the Torino game, where he had that giveaway to out of nothing to give up a goal. Out of nothing.
Yeah.
And then scored the winner at full time.
So who would I know you probably want to get to the other players, but I want to ask you, and you could probably talk about them, but I want to ask you, what would your midfield trio be if you had to pick?
Lucas Torreira definitely at that 6th role in that deepest spot. I have been an Alfred Duncan apologist for the past couple of years since he joined Fiorentina from Sassuolo. I think he's just such a great all-rounder. He does everything well.
Yeah.
He's got this incredible knack for finding vertical passes into the feet of the strikers, which I don't think anyone else does.
Yeah.
He's got a heck of a shot on him when he wants to use it.
Yeah, he does.
And he's just an agent of chaos. He's like a bowling ball coated in rubber. He just bounces around and like he wins the ball. He's not always super accurate with his passing, but he's got this thing that I don't think I've ever seen anyone do as frequently, where he'll make a bad pass, lose the ball, and then go get it right back and keep going. So he's basically playing 1-2s with an opponent. Like he's fantastic. I really like him. For that other spot, like 3 weeks ago, I would have said Giacomo Bonaventura. I mean, he's 32 now. He's getting up there. He's not as spry as he used to be, but he's really crafty still, knows how to play the game. Still very creative, still has a heck of a work rate on him too. But I think that, like you said, Gaetano Castrovilli, I think in the past couple of weeks has really been coming on, and that's really exciting to me. I mean, he's not doing all the stuff that shows up on the score sheet yet, I don't think. But I think this was a really tough year for him, right? Like,
Yeah.
for the first time in his career, he spent the whole summer with Italy at the Euros, and like obviously he played what, like 7 minutes or something. So it's not like he wore himself out playing.
Yeah.
But like training and just having to like the mental energy and the focus that you expend.
And then you not get on the pitch.
Yeah, and then to not play, and then to have no vacation, and then to rejoin the team with a new manager, a bunch of new teammates, playing a completely different style. And then he had a couple of injuries. He had that really scary moment. I don't even remember who it was against, where he crashed into the post and messed up his ribs, had to spend the night in the hospital. And so he just didn't get healthy. So everyone was, I think the narrative was, what's wrong with Gaetano Castrovilli? Did he just have one really good year and now he's never going to be good again? I think that it's really more an issue of he's finally finding fitness again, and he's getting back to where he was, and he showed that he's at his best, he wants to be on the ball, he wants to dribble, he's sumptuous with the ball at his feet. And that's not really what Italiano wants from his midfielders. I think he wants a much quicker, like, take 2 touches, move the ball forward and run. And I think that Castrovilli is starting to reshape his game to that. We've seen that a little bit in the past few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He's looked a lot more creative, way less hesitant. He hasn't been as willing to go down looking for fouls. He's willing to play through a little more contact. So I think over the back 10 games of this season, 11 for Fiorentina, since they've got the Udinese game in hand, depending on what happens with that.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Serie A.
We don't know what the hell you're going to do.
It could be anything. It could be anything.
Be.
But yeah, I think he's really one to watch because he's rounding into form in a big way. And if he can rediscover his form from like 18 months ago, that's going to be all right.
What I love, Tito, is that we have the exact same answer. I would start the exact same middle three.
Really?
Just because because you have the best of all players. You have Torreira, who's just a terror to other teams. And he's also extremely technical. He's a technical player, very great with the ball at his feet, good passer. Then you have Duncan, who just does everything. He's all around great. He's great defensively. He can go forward. And then you need that little bit of, wild card, that creative spark, which I think Castrovilli can be if he goes forward. And, when he's at his best, we know he took dancing classes when he was younger. He's very spry on his feet, and you don't lose that. So I think as long as he could find form, get his fitness, and start really, all it takes is 1 assist, 1 goal, and I think he'll find it, and then he'll start going on a roll.
Now, I think, too, one of the things that gets overlooked about him a lot is that his defensive contribution is fantastic. I mean,
really? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, he's presses really well. If you look at not to get too like nerdy about it here, but like if you go on to FBref, he's one of the let me figure out how I want to say this. He presses more frequently than most midfielders in the league. He's not necessarily a good ball winner, but he gets really involved. He's happy to tackle. He's happy to put his body on the line. He's decent in the air. I mean, even when he's not doing great stuff with the ball at his feet, he's still not always just a passenger. He can contribute without the ball too, which I think gets overlooked with him a lot.
That's awesome. And I really hope they can figure it out because that midfield can be really, really special. So I want to ask you, we're starting to wrap up. We're getting near the end of our amazing journey about talking about Fiorentina, which I'm sad about because this has been really, really fun. But some of the last things I really wanted to touch on, how confident are you in the next 2 matches? You play Bologna this weekend, which I'll be watching that match very closely because I think Bologna is a little bit of a dangerous team at times. And the next weekend you have Inter. So, break those 2 games down quickly. What would you think about Bologna? What are you worried about? What are you confident about? And then what do you think about the Inter match?
Bologna is a team that I always feel like is going to be much better than they are. They've got a lot of attacking talent, a lot of attackers I really like. I think, Arnautovic, not sure if he's going to make it. I know that he tested positive for coronavirus. And they were forced to play, and Federico Santander's out with a busted face, which, ouch.
Yeah.
So they were playing Nico Gonzalez as a striker, which I don't think is what anyone really wants to see, right?
No.
Uh,
Definitely not.
yeah, no. So I'm really interested to see how they shake that out. Yeah, I think that because Fiorentina tend to play a very very high line. Uh, I mean that's just part of Italiano's style. I
Yeah.
worry a little bit about the pace of guys like Musa Barrow getting in behind, so that's always a little bit scary.
Mhm.
But I think that's probably the biggest threat. I don't see anyone in that midfield who really scares me, especially if Sansone is the striker. Not too worried about him going up against, say, Nikola Milenkovic. I
Yep.
think that's a battle that probably tips Fiorentina's way most of the time.
Give
If
me a
you're
scoreline prediction. What are we
oh man,
thinking?
I'll go two
Sorry to
nothing.
put you in the spot.
No, I'll go 0-2 to Fiorentina. They tend to play Bologna well. The other thing is, former coach and Sinisa Mihailovic
Yeah.
always makes you a little bit nervous, but I'm not really impressed with Bologna's defense. Their midfield doesn't look like anything really special to me. I think there's a pretty good chance that Fiorentina can get at them, especially with the high press, win the ball,
Okay.
attack some short fields. I'll say 0-2. Yeah.
I'm gonna one up you. I'm gonna go 3-1. I think
Ooh.
Fiorentina
Okay.
wins that one in a big one. But I think maybe is it Orsolini? Maybe Orsolini, if he plays in that match, he maybe slots in a goal. But now Inter, that's the big one coming up the week after. What do you think about that match, and how confident are you, and how worried are you about this match?
Uh, Definitely more worried than confident. I think I can safely say. I tell you what, man, I really wish that Inter had beat Liverpool, so they would be thinking about the Champions League more. Now that they're focused only on domestic stuff, I think they're going to be a lot tougher to beat. Especially if Lautaro Martinez is going to be scoring goals like that. Holy smokes!
Yeah.
Yeah, really, wrong time for him to bust out of that slump. I would say.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. I mean, that's obviously a very different game. I mean, I never pick against Fiorentina. Like this is one of our long-standing jokes on on Viola Nation is like every time I write a game preview, my score prediction is always Fiorentina, no matter what.
Hmm.
So I'll say that again, but like realistically, and I know that getting anything from that is going to be quite an accomplishment. So I'll say
So
1-1, but
okay, that's actually
that's
really
with
interesting
the
because
that's with the purple tinted glasses on.
that's awesome. Actually, it's funny you say that. I'm actually going to go with the same thing. I'm going to go 1-1. I was
Nice.
actually going to go with that just because I think that I think Fiorentina are going to bounce back from the draw and the loss to Juve, and I think Inter are going to be in a slump and they're going to feel kind of down after that UCL. I know they're going to be focusing more on Serie A, but I think that UCL is going to kind of be still like a hanging, looming cloud over their head. So I think they draw this one. I really hope they draw it too.
I would love that. Fiorentina has just got an incredibly tough run in over these last 10 games.
Yeah,
Half of them are against teams in the top six, which is really tough. So I think that's part of why I have a lot of trouble seeing them making the top six at this point. They dropped too
yeah.
many points against bottom half sides earlier in the season.
Yeah, so that brings me to my last point. Then one of the next teams you play after that is against my team, Juventus. So I told you we wouldn't talk about them too much, but we'll
Oh,
end
let's
on a
do it.
Juventus note.
Let's do
Um,
it.
how confident are you in that match? Because you played well in the first leg, and it really just took a really crummy own goal for Juve to win it. Do you think that you guys can pull the goals back and you take this maybe to a penalty shootout?
Uh, if Juve still have like 4 dozen players injured, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that, like, let's be honest, Fiorentina were incredible in that game. I really do think they deserved to
Hmm.
score, but also a lot of that was because Juve were incredibly shorthanded, right? When you're playing Mattia De Sciglio as a central defender and
Yeah.
you're playing something called Marley Ake as a starting wingback, like what are we talking about here,
You're
right?
talking about like a kid that just came out of preschool playing on the
Yeah.
wing.
I mean, like, credit to him. I mean, that's a very tough spot to get your first senior start, like, no
Yeah.
question. But like, oh boy, howdy, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that Fiorentina, especially given the circumstances Juve were in with all the injuries, I think they really hurt themselves by not scoring and then by conceding.
Score prediction. Give me a score prediction for that one.
Do I have to?
Yes, you do.
Man.
I'm sorry. I don't want to depress you at the end of the show.
Oh.
I'll go first.
No, I'll say again because I always take Fiorentina because I'm an idiot. I'll say 1-2.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's
I'll say
funny. I'm
1-2
going to call it the other
Fiorentina.
way. I'm going to call it 2-1 Juve.
You're probably right. Let's be real, man. Yeah, no, I'm totally just being wishful here.
Hey, you know
No,
what? Miracles happen, man.
miracles happen, but I think the chance for the miracle came and went, if I'm being honest. Which again, like it would have been awesome to win a trophy for Fiorentina for the first time since what 2001.
Yeah,
Unless you're counting like the Copa del Sol in a preseason tournament in like 2013, which was great. If you look it up, it's a trophy so big that Giuseppe Rossi could sit in it. It's hilarious. It's taller than he is.
that's
But
crazy.
yeah, it would have been great to win one this year. It might still happen. It's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
90 minutes, who can say? But I really feel like Fiorentina had the chance and let it slip away a little bit, which, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, on a bright note, I think that absolutely, I think they still have a chance to finish top 6. If not 7th and make Conference League. I think at minimum they can make the Conference League. This team is extremely talented, and I don't have a lot of faith in Roma or Lazio to hold those points. I can see one of them dropping points.
I mean, with Roma, the Mourinho effect's bound to come in sooner or later, right? Where the whole team just decides they hate him and stop playing for him, right? Like it's.
Or he could have the opposite effect. He could get them riled up, and then they could start playing well. So that's where I'm at. I think that they start getting riled up and they start playing well, and then Lazio dips in terms of their ability. And then I think that's where Fiorentina slip in.
Maybe. I mean, it's just I don't know. Mourinho at every club he's been at for the past half decade or something. Like in his first year, that all the players just get so sick of his antics they give up. I'm amazed that hasn't happened at Rome yet, but I don't know. Maybe it's for next year. We'll see.
We'll see. But on that note, I want to thank you so much, Tito, for coming on and sharing all of your insight on Fiorentina. This has been such an informative episode, and it's been amazing. We're going to have this one posted on our YouTube channel probably within the next couple of days. So I hope you guys will check it out. It's going to be amazing to have you guys watch this, which will be hopefully live in a day or two, and you guys can see this amazing interview with Tito. So in the meantime, you guys have a great night. Thank you, Tito, for your time. And everybody, have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.